Wednesday, January 31st, was a day just like any other day. Patty got up and was getting ready for work, and I was still kind of trying to sleep in a little bit, and I had the next few days off, and I had a hectic December and January, and I was just really tired. I hadn't been sleeping well, and so I needed some time away.
And I was just minutes from walking out the door when I heard a thud. Mark had fallen out of bed, and when I got to him, he was disoriented and his color wasn't right. So I said, "We're going to the ER." I just began to pray that God would open the door when we got there. And sure enough, when we walked in, there was only one person in the ER, so they got us in right away. As they took Mark's vitals, his oxygen level was at a 61, and I knew that we were in trouble, but we were exactly where we needed to be. And so in a matter of minutes, Mark's level dropped to 49. So they immediately got him on full oxygen. His level rose, his color returned, he began to feel better. Tests showed he had pneumonia, and they believed some severe sleep apnea. So they were gonna admit him and just run a few more tests on him. So Mark began to kind of settle in and drift off to sleep. But when they came in to wake him up, he was unresponsive. They couldn't get him awake. And so his blood gases were showing that his dioxide level was way too high. They tried for about 45 minutes to get his levels to come down, and they wouldn't. So we had no choice at that point. We had to put him on a ventilator. As I waited, I just began to pray that God would touch his body and calm the storm. It wasn't until the critical care doctor came to talk to me that I realized just how dire this situation was. I cried out to God for strength because I had to do what no mother ever wants to do. I had to call our kids and tell them to pack a bag and get here as quick as possible because their dad was now critical. I knew that there was an army within this church across the nation and halfway around the world that was praying for Mark and for our family. I can't adequately put into words how I began to see God work and move as only He can do. Mark made slight improvement overnight, and when the critical care doctor met with me on Thursday, he said, "Patty, I didn't think he would make it through the night." Mark was still critical, but as Friday evening came around, I was struggling with a lot of guilt. How did we get to this place? How did I miss this? And God, in His timing, sent the sweetest nurse, Cassie. She came in, she took charge. She made sure I knew what every medicine and every machine was doing for Mark. And then she asked if she could pray for him as she did all of her patients. As we continued to talk, she began to share that she was from Franklin County, where Mark and I both grew up, and that she was struggling with her purpose and was she where she needed to be. And I shared with her that I believe God had sent her at the right time when my heart needed clarity and peace about the situation. And so she was right where He wanted her. She just needed to keep her eyes on Him. Over the course of the next several days, Mark began to show improvements. And on Sunday morning, the decision was made to take him off of the ventilator.
So 5 days later, I did not know it was 5 days later, but I woke up in a hospital room. I didn't know what it was whenever I woke up. I remember looking at the ceiling and seeing the lights and knowing that, okay, I'm in some kind of building somewhere. I'm laying in a bed, and I remember looking off, I believe it was to my right, and Patty was sitting there, and our eyes caught about the same time, and she got up and started making her way over to the bed. And I was trying to talk to her, but what was coming out, it was a kind of a garbled mess. you wouldn't have been able to understand what I was saying. I knew what I wanted to say, I just couldn't say it because I realized at some point that I had all these tubes and everything going in my mouth, and I had some kind of contraption that was on my head that was blowing air back at me, trying to help me breathe. And it was basically all this stuff was keeping me alive, but I couldn't talk. And so her kind of going through that and just kind of talking to me and trying to help me understand and answering some of my questions, even though she didn't know really what I was saying at all. And there was some questions I was trying to ask that she didn't understand. And so finally my agitation, my confusion subsided, and I just kind of closed my eyes. And I really believe right before I went to sleep, I was just like, why God and why now? I was just thinking, that was before I knew it. I had been there for 5 days already. I was thinking, it's Wednesday. I've got plenty of time. I'm going to do some fun things. I'm going to rest. And then to realize, no, I'm in the hospital. I was just like, I couldn't understand. And so over those next couple days, as me and Patty would talk, and as she said, some of those tubes were removed and things, I was able to talk a little bit better. I was just really encouraged by her faith, her unwavering faith. I mean, during that time, I'll be honest with you, my faith was kind of wavering. Not that I wasn't trusting in Jesus and what he did for me on the cross, but I was just wavering that all of this was good. I couldn't understand any of it. I was just confused. But I lived off of her faith. And as I watched her and her trust in the Lord, that the Lord had this, that helped me grow as I looked through the rest of the week. And as I was laying there thinking through this, I knew that the Lord must have a plan for this. I had no clue though what it was. And but as I continued through the week, it really started to dawn on me as Patty would bring in letters and cards and people that had talked to her, and just the amount of people that were praying for me and everything. And as she said, people across this nation, people across the world that I'd never met, never knew, were praying for me. And it was very humbling, a very humbling experience. And I just didn't know, I guess, some of the depths of how much my church family loves me and my family. And for that, I truly say, man, thank you so much. Thank you for a card or a meal or whatever you did to minister to my family during that time. It was very much appreciated. Most of you know that one of my favorite verses is Romans 8:28, and it says, God works out everything for good who love him and are called according to his purpose. But a lot of times we forget, and I didn't mention those first three words at the beginning because a lot of people don't say those, but it says, and we know. That is a promise from God to us, that God is going to work out everything for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So even in this, I could see God working out good. It gave me chances to share with others about Jesus and who he meant to me, and it helped me encourage people that would come through my room. And just there were tons of conversations I had at that point, and as I've done my follow-up doctor visits. And so just extremely encouraging to me. But also another verse that I think of, January 31st wasn't my expiration date, but there is a date and there is a time that God is going to say, hey, Mark, it's your time. I'm coming for you. You're going to come and live with me. And I know from the scripture it says that I'll be face to face with him, 2 Corinthians 5:8. And I cannot wait for that day. We've witnessed it. His promises are never failing, and we give him all the praise and all the glory and all the honor for this.